Amazing. Super excited to be here today. A longtime friend and longtime colleague, times mentor. So here we go. Jump into it. Maybe a quick introduction here. Farhan Thawar, dear friend. I think we've known each other. We stopped counting the decades, but it's been a long time.
31 years?
31 years. There we go. We're officially of age of something. Pleasure to have you on. We'll walk through a few things, but maybe just quick introduction of yourself. Actually, maybe a long introduction of yourself to get started.
Sure. So yeah, let's go back, I guess. Yeah, I've been in the tech industry now many decades. We went to Waterloo together. That's how we know each other. I was a year ahead. And I guess the way to characterize my career, I've been in a bunch of small companies and a bunch of big companies. Like that's how I think about it. Some very small, like started my own company. Obviously, it was also early in Extreme Labs, which you started. And then also some big companies. Like probably the biggest was when I was at Microsoft. It was only 60,000 people at the time. I think it's like hundreds of thousands now. And then I also got lucky on being part of a bunch of like early stage companies. And so I was at, CTO of Achievers, which is Sequoia backed. I was early at Extreme Labs, and we were lucky enough there to be acquired by Pivotal and Pivotal Labs, and got to spend a lot of time in mobile. And then I started a company after that with an entrepreneur in Toronto named Daniel DeBow called Helpful. We built 3 products over 3 years. And then in 2019, we got acquired by Shopify. So the last 7 years or so, I've been spending time in commerce, and have been on this, I guess, probably very minor part that I played on the Shopify story, but it's crazy to be part of this rocket ship now. And so I've been there almost 7 years now. So,
It's
pretty
amazing.
crazy, and I'm based in Toronto.
Love it. We'll get into a bunch of this. I think for those out there, it's probably underselling what a rocket ride it's been and a
Mhm.
HOF type style. But always when I was younger, I was always trying to look for people whose mindset was similar, career paths were similar, and ambitions were similar, and hopefully folks earlier on in their career are watching this, even folks at our age going, wow, that's something to aspire to. So I really think that's great.
Yeah, well, I think it's good maybe to go back because some of the things that we had done together kind of set the foundation for this. So one was your brother-in-law selling his company. Like I remember where we were in the Student Life Center at Waterloo when you told me your brother-in-law sold his company to Texas Instruments, and I was like, "You can do that? Like you can start a company and you can sell it?" Like I had no idea that was a possibility. And then randomly, because this is before the days of like Facebook and social media, we would run into each other in like airports and things like that. But then in '07, when you were starting Extreme Venture Partners and Extreme Labs, you called me and you said, I got to talk to you. And then I remember exactly where we were at the keg in the back when you pitched me the idea of joining you guys. And I had said, I remember saying this, I'm like, I just got married and I was at Microsoft, and I kind of chose, what I thought was like I guess the safer path. I kind of talked to lots of companies, I think 25, and I narrowed it down to two. And I ended up working at both. One was Achievers, and then I ended up coming to Extreme Labs in '09. So
That's right.
some pretty
I remember that.
pivotal moments.
I remember we were sitting on that back patio. Let's get into a couple of these topics. You're not just a proponent, but you're quite vocal about a few things, and I love them. So I want people to really get a chance to understand the deeper why. Let's start. We met each other at school. We were co-op students, and now today a Waterloo co-op student's quite cracked, which is always great. Um, I remember we worked at Newbridge, one of the Terry Matthews companies way back in the day, and we see each other very often, almost too often, at the hot chocolate coffee area. And I think one of the roots of us being there was like, once you you know surfed the Cangate Telnet web at the time, there wasn't much else to do, and maybe I think that was kind of instrumental a bit in our careers and building and doing being in the center of doing things. Maybe just spend a moment or two to share thoughts there.
Yeah, so I mean, Terry Matthews is obviously an amazing entrepreneur, great Canadian success story. I don't think enough people talk about him, but he he had this hardware company in outside of Ottawa. And he actually had a fair amount of interns, right? We were in a class of like 100 interns that were there. And I remember because I was like one of the terms I was president of the interns or whatever. And obviously we had like socials and soccer and pub crawls and things like that. But part of it was like, hey, let's get these energetic, young, hungry, smart folks into the company to inject energy into the company. And unfortunately, I think that the company didn't really allow us to do that. Like the company was really, that's why we were always at the hot chocolate, because they kind of gave us these like intern jobs, like, hey, here's a small piece of a project. Let me give you this and let me do that. And I remember it was so small that you could kind of finish your work in like a couple hours for the week. And you'd be like, now what do I work on? And if you tried to work on something else, it was just not, and again, nothing wrong with the organization. I think it was just not set up to take those interns and allow them to be unleashed. And it was actually my next internship where I worked at this small company called Sangoma Technologies, which was writing wide area network drivers for Linux. It was only 5 people. And I took the job actually because one, it was super small, it was 5 people, and also because it was very close to my parents' house and I could go home for lunch. It was like those two things. And but one of the people resigned while I was there to go to another company. So it was a 4 people, but because it was only 4 people, like you did everything. You kind of they were not like you're an intern and you only got to do intern jobs. They're like, can you do this person's job, the full time who left? And so I took over that person's job. And I was like, wow, interns can do a lot. And that's something that I remember you saying when I got to Extreme, when you said, let's give these interns an experience that we wish we had when we were interns. And so we kind of like, let them be unleashed and like, not to skip too far forward, but like at Shopify, right? I hired 1,000 interns this year for the same reason, because I wanted to make sure that this is not like a charity component. Like people are like, oh, let's give like a community service, let's give interns jobs and it's good for the community. No, we're going to learn more from the interns than they're going to learn from us. And we absolutely require this level of energy, AI adoption, hunger, ability to learn and question everything. And so we consider it core to how we work. And so that's why we're doing it here. And so it's not charity. If you think, if there's any company out there thinking that's a thing to do because of community service or charity, you're thinking about it wrong.
It's amazing. Let's jump to the 1,000. So the 1,000 is bigger than most companies.
Yep. Yep.
And you're obviously, you've got so much going on that you have meaningful work for 1,000, which is incredible. But I think it was maybe at one of the events recently you talked about this and it came up in the lunch after. It was like the interns are there to push. They don't really realize it. So maybe, I told we're dated by saying double click. Let's refine the prompt. Refine what I'm
Yep.
asking here.
Yeah. So I think two things. 1,000 is a lot of interns, but it's 1,000 over the year, which is basically like 300 a term. And we have about 3,000 engineers. So it's about 10%. So you can think of it as 10% of your engineering workforce. So if you have a company of 10 engineers, you should have one intern at all times, which would mean 3 over the year. So I don't think it's actually that crazy if you have a company of 100 to have 10 engineers, 10 interns throughout the, every term. And you're right that the interns come in with a lot of hunger and excitement and energy. And what you want them to do is you want them to be embedded in teams and given the same jobs as the full times, right? Like they're part of the team, they're a team member. And what I mean by push is that the interns typically will push you on a bunch of areas that might be semi uncomfortable, right? Like, why are we doing things this way? Why does this take so long? Why are you not using this tool? How can we reduce toil by using the latest AI tools, right? Like they're now growing up with AI, right? ChatGPT came out 3 years ago. So if you're a new grad, you've had most of your university life with an AI companion. So they're more likely to be AI reflexive, which means they're more likely to pull in AI earlier than you would. And so we like to see them pushing the envelope, but also pushing the full times. And that means that they are questioning and asking, and they have a high energy, and they're really setting the pace for how much faster we could work. And people always think back to like the triangle of quality, speed, and cost. Like you can only pick two, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it turns out when you have really, really good people, you can actually build amazing things in high quality very quickly. So I actually think that the triangle doesn't hold. Like you can actually do things that were not possible before. And interns are really key to that equation.
Wow. Like it's a triangle of paradox we talk about
Yeah.
relentlessly, and you've broken it. I love it. Um, all the engineering folks out there, the managers, the PMs, there it is, right? Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, don't forget, like you see there's these famous lines, right? Like Picasso who drew a line and charged like $100,000. Like, why you only drew a line? He goes, yeah, but it took me 40 years to learn which line to draw, right? And so, really good people with taste and with a craft expertise can actually build amazing things quickly. And so, you need to figure out what your environment is about and bring those people in.
I think you see that in a lot of the Shopify items. Let's maybe dig into that. So the catalog just came out. That API
Yeah.
is a thing. Maybe spend a few minutes on that. You have that beautiful globe at the Sphere on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, maybe, and then we can dig it into like how you prepare for that, what keeps you up at night, all those things.
Yeah. Let me tell you, let me do the second one first. So the Shopify globe every year is a great testament to how Shopify works because you can see it from two dimensions. You can see it from the dimension of somebody who says, I can't believe you put this much work into the globe for just one weekend. And why didn't you put all that work into features, or why didn't you put all that work into some other part of the system? And instead, we built a pinball game. We built, like, last year we had like gravity on and off. This year we had all these like hidden Easter eggs. It runs in a web browser. It runs with low CPU overhead. It ran on the Sphere. So we did all these things. And you can think back and go, well, why? And the reason is again, we want it to be like a love letter to the web. Look at what's possible. Look at what it means to have taste and think things can be beautiful. And it's literally, we're just trying to visualize the amazing work all of the entrepreneurs around us are doing, right? Like Shopify is not like, it's not our weekend, it's merchants weekend. It's the brands weekend. They're the ones who are going to win here. And we just happen to be the ones helping facilitate it. It's, it's like, Toby has this line where he says, fun is load bearing for the company. Like, it's fun. And so we want to do fun. Who doesn't want to work on fun things? Who doesn't want to play a pinball game in the middle of Black Friday? So we do these things sometimes because they're fun, and it doesn't need another reason. And actually, it's one of the reasons. Like, and we've talked about this externally as well. Is like we don't have OKRs because we believe. And I read this line on the weekend, which is perfect. It's like once you try to, Goodhart's law, right? Once you a measure, once it's used to the extreme, fails to be a good measure anymore. Because so you have some goal like conversion, all of a sudden people just focus on the goal and they forget about the reason it's there in the first place. And so we really want to measure things, but we want them to still be worth measuring. And if you turn a measure into a goal, it stops measuring the thing that you wanted to measure.
Very
So
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and so we don't have OKRs in the traditional sense. Of course, we test things and we use data and we are very, data informed, but we don't try to just let the data dictate, hey, here's the color of blue we should have on this page, right? So we don't do that. To the first question, which is on the catalog, like Shopify is a company that really believes in building infrastructure. And so the catalog isn't like, it's not a product on its own. It's infrastructure for the internet, right? So you can imagine as we move from the old way of finding out about products was this is marketing, there's search engines, there's social media. All of that was enabled via our web properties. It was easy to point to things. It was easy to crawl those things. And we built the infrastructure to allow all of that to happen. The next world might be LLMs. And if you're spending more time in an LLM instead of a search engine, what is the infrastructure that is required to power that LLM? Well, it turns out you need to have a place, in our case, a catalog of all of the amazing products across all of our brands that an LLM can then now surface. So if you ask, what dress should I buy my daughter for grade 8 graduation? Everyone on the internet hopes that all the amazing independent brands show up alongside the big brands because you want to find the best thing for your daughter. It doesn't mean it's only from a big box retail store. It could also be from a small independent brand down the street from you, by the way, right? And so you want everything to be available. And so Shopify is actually tailor-made for this because we almost always build infrastructure. One analogy I tell people is that if I could build a feature in 2 or 3 weeks, or I could build the infrastructure for that feature, which would take 2 or 3 months, such that that feature could be built in 1 hour. So in one way, I take 3 weeks to build the feature. In another way, I spend 3 months building infra, but now I can build the feature in 1 hour on top of that infra. I will almost always choose the infra approach. And the reason for that is because when you have the infra and a use case and you're building them together, you will end up building the right abstraction layer because you're now thinking about what belongs where. But the most important thing is that infrastructure is now available for anybody to use. You
This is
don't know what else is
counterintuitive.
possible.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's counterintuitive. It's going to take me longer, but now I have infra that I can build other things on top of. So the cool thing about the catalog is, of course, it's now a catalog for all of these LLMs to ingest and surface these great products. But it's also a catalog if anybody wants to build an app. It's a catalog for anyone to use without talking to us. It's a catalog we can put in front of other people to then have a conversation about a partnership. Like, it's infrastructure for the internet that we can use in many ways. And it's not just a feature for one use case.
Amazing. It's definitely worth checking out if you haven't checked out, and I'm sure we'll come back to it in a quarter, in a year. Like it's kind of it's consumers distributing in the LLM world.
Yeah. And I mean, don't forget, like, it's a catalog for us too, right? Like, we're building things. We have a catalog for our own properties. We have a catalog for LLMs to use. Like, the whole idea is to build the infrastructure for anyone to use. And so it's for us also. But instead of just building it for us, we now give it to everybody.
Let me take a bit of a deeper dive on this. 'Cause like you, we're in what I call the fifth wave for us, right? We had, client server, then there was the PC paradigm, developer, web, mobile,
Yep.
and now this. And I'm not
Yeah. And
sure what
you can even put cloud in there and then this.
cloud
Yeah.
and then this, right? Like
Yep.
we've been, by virtue of time and age and experience, we've been in the center of the eye of all of these things.
Yeah.
And I kind of look at it now and I go, okay, this is a thing. Never in my career did I ever imagine somebody would have a chance to upend Google search and ads. And I start looking at this stuff and I go, huh. When I search on OpenAI, I get results from you all. When
Hmm.
I ask questions that are context dependent and require some inference, I'm going to get results from you all. Like, there's just something fundamentally different happening now that's different than me putting together, some bids on some keywords. And it's fundamentally changed. Maybe give us a longer term view of, like, I said five, but maybe you made six, because, but, like, maybe give your take on this. And it really came to light when I was in a call with your friend Shahir, and he was just telling me how you two met. So that was just, it really hit
Well,
home.
that you mean my dad's cousin, Shahir. I mean, the way to think about it is the following. Anytime there's a new technological revolution, you have the opportunity to have new leaders in that new space, right? So at every point, client server, desktop, web, mobile, like, cloud, like, it allows new entrants to appear because it's a technology shift, and some incumbents will take the shift and some incumbents won't, right? Like, it's actually been amazing to see, like, Microsoft and Google, which are, much older companies, embrace, like, cloud and still be around, right? Or mobile in the case of Google with Android. Right? Apple got its relevance back with the iPhone, and so I think that there's that opportunity. I think the second thing is that if you are somebody who's building infrastructure, you can actually enable many more use cases on top of you, right? So if you think of the LLMs, they all are now thinking about app stores and agents and the ability for people to build on top of them as platforms. And I mean, in the Google case, it's super interesting, right? Because now you go to Google search and you get an AI overview answer, right? So they're trying to figure out the new paradigm for even how search works and what does it mean for ads and how do we get, attention reset as well. So I think that the way to think about it is it's for every change, there can be new leaders. If you're building infra, you can have people build on top of it. I think the most interesting thing about AI is, unlike web, mobile, and cloud, AI has the opportunity outside of just what we see in terms of, like, online, like there's like robotics and other things. It has the opportunity to be bigger than the internet itself, right? Because it can be inside of, in a physical manifestation, it can be virtual, it can be chatbots, it can be agents, it can be toil reduction, it could be like a robot in my house sweeping the floor, like it could be a teacher for my kid, right? It can be all these different things. And so I think we're closer and farther away from that world, meaning, like, you think it's right around the corner, but I think it's not right around the corner, but it'll also sneak up on us no matter how well we try to plan for it. And but I do think that it is something that will be bigger than most people think, but will take longer to
Yeah.
disseminate than most people.
Well, we see these interim checkpoints now, right? Like, I think for if you use the web as analogy of, assembling humankind's or nature's information, and then you kind of take the abstraction in an LLM world to process it and understand it. It's a really interesting thing.
Yeah, I mean, and the place I hope we don't end up in is, like, I have like 3 bullet points to send you, and I use an LLM to turn it into like 5 pages, and then you take the 5 pages and use an LLM to turn it back into 3 bullet points. Like, I hope we don't get into that world. where
Yeah,
it's just
yeah, yeah.
like, I want to sound smart, so let me turn the and all I really have to send to you is these three things, and instead of just
Yeah.
sending you the three things, I send you like the AI slop, and then you convert it back into bullets.
Yeah, I see that sometimes in, email threads that aren't just like lead gen threads, like proper threads back and forth. I'm like, like, that's
Yeah.
not you. That was strange, like it's
That's what I
just kind of
mean. Yeah,
kind
and
of
so
interesting.
but I do find that there are I mean, it's a very overhyped technology. I can't tell if it's overhyped or underhyped or like right on the money, but it has not shown up yet in all the numbers, right? Like everybody's got a use case that's better with AI, but like this is the of all new technologies, there's the famous line, it shows up everywhere, but in the GDP, like like they don't know where,
So
they don't know how it shows up. Yeah.
we see a series of job cuts, reductions across even big tech companies now. Um, there's always a repurposing of roles on the core and sometimes the fringes too, right? So it's just not it's not new. I just wonder if those jobs get repurposed or if they get cut and the growth comes in a J curve later over time when people figure out this new box of innovation in LLMs. But um, you're at scale. Do you think you could do the same work with more people, less people? What's kind of your take at scale?
Yeah, so I think the way to think about it is we really love the size we're at, and we try to just make everyone more productive by reducing toil. And so we have, again, we build infrastructure for our brands, and so we build infrastructure for ourselves, right? We have an internal Libra chat system, which allows anyone to ask questions of the data inside of Shopify, including the data portal, including Slack, GitHub, your calendar. Like we have all these tools enabled. We have MCP servers to all of the different data sources so that you can quickly kick up like a cursor instance and actually create your own software, like N of one software to help you with your own, your own day of building stuff. And we have an internal hosting site. We call it like a GeoCities almost,
Oh, nice.
where yeah, where you can create a URL and deploy things on it, which allows you to quickly vibe code something, put it on a site internally. People can play with it, remix it, do whatever they want. And that has seen a lot of proliferation internally because you now have the ability to create these tools that you couldn't create before because now everyone can write code, right? Like using an LLM. And so I think there's a lot that is changing, but it doesn't. I don't think it has to mean smaller. Smaller if you don't want to. I think it actually can just mean everyone can do more,
Yeah,
right? Like
I'll
we,
pop in there. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say we really believe as we look at the horizon, like every time I get closer to some end goal at Shopify on a product, we end up looking farther. We look and we're like, wow, that was cool, but look over there. We can keep going. We can reduce the toil. And Toby reminds us often where he's like, we've only been doing this for 21 years. Like, who thinks we're at close to the end? Like, we're not. And so um, we're still trying to reduce toil for our merchants, and we want them to have all the time to spend on building the best product and talking to their customers. And we're not there. And so we believe that there's lots more we can do. And so we want to remove again all the toil that our teams face in delivering those amazing experiences for these great merchants and brands.
I love it. I'll contrast that with us. Like, our team size today, 7, 8 years ago, even 5 years ago, it would have probably been triple the size.
Yeah.
And my take has been, we will have unlimited budget on any of the tools. Show me what's possible, right? And I use the tool. And it's been really, really fascinating for that. Just on the company's version of the API for all the merchants. In our world of alternative assets, there's no equivalent of a QSIP number which exists in the public markets to keep everything cataloged. So we're really working with the industry to create something like that, which then allows you to do a bunch of the questionings and inference and logic around it. So it's super fun. Um, Let's maybe switch gears here. Let's talk to some people who are, I don't know, just teenagers now. What to look forward for the next 5 years, maybe their career. For context, our some of our kids are in the same school, they're in the same grade, they very similar vantage point of looking at this stuff. So I'd love to just talk to that crowd.
Yeah, so I think there's a good framework. Actually, this came from I spoke to a professor at the University of Waterloo, where we both went to school, about why they had. So there was a programming competition happening, and they basically went out on Twitter and said we're disqualifying everybody because everybody clearly used AI. And I was like, well, why is that a bad thing? So I had an interesting conversation with them, and he led me to this framework, which I really like, and so I adopted it as my own framework. And the framework is the following: people should be able to do work without AI. Like step one, here's a problem. You should be able to go to it at first principles without using any tools because we want you to understand how to do things on your own. And this reminds me of when I went to Waterloo, the first year math was no calculators. So everything was just do everything by hand, no calculators, and it really just focused on like the craft of being able to understand how to do everything by hand. Step two is you have a calculator, right? And in this case, AI, and it's AI optional, right? So I have a calculator. It doesn't mean I do everything with the calculator. If it says 5 + 7, I'm not using a calculator for that, right? But if there's a bigger number, I grab the calculator. So AI optional is the second phase. So step one is be able to do everything on your own. Step two is AI optional. How do I know when to pull AI in? How long does it take me to pull in AI when I run into some toil? When is it not useful, right? So that's kind of learning that. And that's what I would tell my kids as well. There's like step two. And then step three is AI mandatory. And AI mandatory is the time frame is too short, the problem is too large. Like I have no choice, but I have to use AI. And this is like I have to use the calculator because actually the numbers is just going to take me too long. And now with number three is how do I wield the AI? Do I know what to use, what model, when, how to wield it, how to prompt it? What am I getting back? What's garbage? What's not garbage? How do I allow like the context engineering of what I'm trying to solve to flow through to the model in a way that's going to be useful for the model to give me the right answer? So I think you kind of have to be able to think in these three zones of like no AI, so I know what I'm doing at the first principles level. AI is optional, I know when to pull it in, and three, AI mandatory because there's just no way to do it. And so I think but in all cases, being able to wield and use the AI is super important. And if people are not learning this in school, then like where are they learning it? Because they need to be able to, right? Like so any school that's like I ban AI everywhere, I'm like, that's crazy. Because who's gonna hire the kid who comes out who doesn't know anything about AI tools? I can't have someone who only uses AI, right? I had a candidate interview and they were, we were using AI tools because we use AI tools at work. And so they were using Cursor, or I can't remember what they were using, probably Cursor. And they generated all this code. And then I saw a bug and I'm like, cool, let's fix the bug. And instead of fixing the bug, which I could see on the screen, they were prompting and they're like prompt, prompt, prompt. And I'm like, just fix the bug.
Yeah.
And it was clear they didn't actually know the underpinnings of the code to be able to fix the bug. And so now I'm like, okay, well, do I really want somebody working on this engine of commerce without being able to understand the details?
There was a course that was pretty seminal for me. Most people take it. It's like an introduction to electrical engineering circuits. And you're given a workstation. It's maybe your first introduction. At the time it was a Spark station or something. And you were told to run a simulation and see if the outputs and the logic tree and the K maps all worked for you in the state machines. I remember the professor stopping the lab and he said, if anybody's using the compiler to back solve the solution, that is not the purpose of today's lab. I would like for you to come up with an answer, think of it as punch cards. Then you got to throw it in the compiler to see if you're getting it correct. And when he said that, it always stuck with me. It's like if you don't know what the output's going to be, you know, there's classes of problems where you shouldn't throw it into the solver. You should actually understand what they're going to be. And this is maybe a hardware mindset. Like if you're in chip development out there, like this, like we need to know what's going on here, right? It's going to cost us $10 million to figure this out. If we get it wrong,
Yeah.
but
I
there's a
mean,
class
this
of
is true
problems
of,
where that's okay.
yeah, this is true of I think most of the domains, right? Like if you can understand things 2 or 3 layers below the level you're playing at, you will likely uncover something that you would not have uncovered, right? I remember this from taking real time at Waterloo where I kept, I remember I kept hitting my head against the wall on this problem in the real time lab. And I finally just read the assembly code and I'm like, the compiler was making a mistake. And so I had to write inline assembly. And there's no way to do that unless you actually understand things at a few layers below. And that's not saying I had to do that every time. I'm not writing an assembly all day. I was
Yeah,
writing
yeah,
an
yeah.
assembly,
I think this context
right?
is really important, right? When people use something to know a layer or two below. I think it's a great career advice too, whether it doesn't matter what you're in. Like if you're in financial world, tech worlds, whatever, you should really know one or two layers below. Healthcare, it's super interesting, super valuable.
Yeah, not just
Um,
anything. I mean, I was just watching F1 with my kids on the weekend. And I was lucky to meet a Formula E driver. Formula E is like the electric Formula racing league. And I was listening to him talk about the tires and the car and the battery and whatever. I was like, and I talked to another guy and I was like, does everybody talk like this? They're like, no, he was like, this driver was special. He understood everything of how the car was built. And I was like, and that made him a better driver. And so I think that is true of kind of any domain. The farther, the deeper you can go, even though you might operate at this layer, the better understanding you're going to have of what you're able to do at your level.
Yeah, I tell folks if they'll listen any age. I go, there's two things I've seen be successful in adults. One is the ground seeker of truth, and it maybe speaks to this get a layer or two below, make go through the hard thing to figure it out, right? And like those people in the room are generally pain in the butts, but they're actually usually super, super, super valuable. Like they're the one where people look to as they go, is that true? And they have to like take a moment and be like, okay, and when they finally give their approval, whether it's like, they're an accountant, lawyer, doctor, scientist, or engineer, pick your thing. It's like, okay, they've signed off on this fact. Let's move forward, right? And then the second thing I tell people is the art of storytelling. Telling something everybody knows in a way where they just can't forget it. Saying something, visceral so people get reminded. But really, to me, it's like there's a bit of a reality distortion in any good conversation or topic. It starts with something where people have to shift their mind a bit. And then once they enter your zone, you're riffing with them back and forth. And I always find those two things I've seen be very successful in adults. And then I say, if you can get both of those things, we're like a one in a million, right? Like that's really, really, really tough to do. But that's kind of been my experience and my kick on this step.
Yeah, there's a really good book called Range, which talks about this kind of orthogonally, which is about how often does greatness come because someone is a generalist versus a specialist. And it turns out, according to this book anyway, that most people are more like Roger Federer versus Tiger Woods. Like Tiger Woods was bred to be a golf player, but like Roger Federer played like tough soccer and like lots of different things. And it turns out a lot of world-class people in one domain tend to actually have transferred from a different domain into the domain. We used to say this thing called T-shaped people, which is like be broad but be deep in one thing. And I heard this thing, I think it was at Google, that said they have like they're looking for M-shaped people, where like they can kind of go across, they can be good in a bunch of things, but deep in a few different areas, right? I tell this funny story where I was on a panel with this guy and he said, my God, my son, he's so useless. All he does is play video games all the time and doesn't want to do school. Then a few years later, I saw the same guy and I go, how's your son? He goes, oh, well, he still plays video games, but now he's doing a useless degree. Finally, he's going to school, but he's doing archaeology. I was like, okay. He's like, he's really interested in it, whatever. And then I meet him a few years later and I go, what's going on with your son? He goes, he's the #1 drone excavator in the world because of the dexterity of the video game controller and the domain expertise of archaeology. He's literally the #1 drone excavator in the world because he's the only person who knows both those domains. And I was like, the dad was so worried about it the whole time, but it turns out he was like a savant in like video games and also in archaeology that he can now do these excavations better than anyone else.
The blending of two skill sets or two knowledge sets is always sets off a race.
Well, that's what I mean.
Right.
So I tell people like be good in like 2 or more things, like world class in 2 or more things. And by the way, you don't have to be like the 99th percentile in 1, but you could be like 90th percentile in 2. And that tends to be more interesting.
Let's flip a bit of the gears here. You've been a huge proponent. We both started our careers globally, so in America as well. We both live in Toronto. You have a couple of famous T-shirts, but the one I always love is SF is a rapper on Canada.
Yeah.
For those out there, maybe just talk a bit about it and kind of the goods, the positives, things people should think about. Like I know you and I are running into each other at the airports all the time, but maybe just opine a bit on that and share some thoughts.
There's a lot of studies which show that like the city you live in actually has a big effect on your outlook on life. There's a famous book called Global Soul, and where a consultant tries to figure out what city to live in. And I grew up in Toronto. I'm a big fan of Toronto, and so and then of course Canada as well. I think the way to think about it for me has always been like, hey, where do you want to build your family, have your kids go to school, etc. And then can you travel to the places you have to travel to have these great meetings, right? Like it turns out, and I know we're talking on over like, Riverside today, but a lot of times we get together in person because there's no actual replacement for IRL. That being said, just because you have a company in one city doesn't mean you can't fly to another city to meet people or be on the road more often. And of course, conduct a lot of your business online as well. And so I'm a big fan of Canada. One of the things I had to get over when I took my first job in Austin was that these big name schools didn't really have anything over the best Canadian schools either. Right? I moved out of my Toronto in 1998. And I get to Austin and everybody was like, what's Waterloo? Like nobody even knew what the school was. Now that's not the case. Everybody knows what Waterloo is, or University of Toronto or McGill or UBC or all these great schools, University of Alberta. And so I think that people should really feel and believe that you can compete on a global scale. And if you want to move to the Valley, move to the Valley. But if you want to stay here, you can also stay here and build world-class companies. I don't think it's either or. I think you now have the choice. And we also proved that doing Extreme Labs, where we said, hey, like this should be a place that people can have the best time of their career. And people routinely still send us messages saying they had an amazing time at Extreme a decade plus ago. And we gave them that opportunity. It doesn't mean you have to go to, you have to like limit your career options just because you want to stay in Toronto or Canada.
Those are some of the best emails to get because they're just like they can only take your day one way. It's up, right? Like
Yeah, amazing.
it's super nice. There's the group. Everybody talks about the PayPal mafia. They talk about this Extreme Labs mafia of all these folks who've gone around and done things. Uh, let's talk about the Shopify mafia. There's a lot
Hmm.
going on there. There's a ton of offshoots, but there's a ton of different areas where people are focused on. And is that just a testament to how the company was built and how you all run it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are. I mean, we're a very entrepreneurial company because we serve entrepreneurs, right?
Mm.
And so a lot of the Shopify folk themselves are entrepreneurial, either run a Shopify store or came from an entrepreneurial background. And that gives us insight into the entrepreneurial journey as well, right? Like to see the trials and tribulations. It's actually why one of the big reasons why we built Sidekick. Sidekick is our like AI co-founder inside of the admin, which helps you running your store, building out themes, updating settings, like all of those things are available, building a lot of reports. And it's supposed to make you feel like you're not doing this by yourself.
Right.
You're actually doing this with a partner. And Sidekick is amazing in helping people do that. And so that it's one of the amazing things that came out of all of the R&D we do. And it's designed so you can spend time on your products. Like the whole goal of it, Shopify, unlike most products, is to get you out of the product. We do not want you in admin, right? Like we measure hours saved. Like we'll have a time series of like, before we put the feature in and after. And if you spend less time in our product after, we're like, that's a win. We have saved you time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's what we're trying to do.
What's just on that? What's kind of a thing you hold near and dear in truth that like others just when they hear it they go no way. Like spend less time inside our product would be an example of something like.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I really like about Toby is he's very contrarian, but a lot of times you realize that he's not doing it for contrarian reasons. He's doing it because he believes it. And I'll give you an example. I remember we were doing a tech review and we showed Toby this design, and he looked at it and he said, "Why did you stop here?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "There's an infinite number of wrong solutions to this problem. There's probably 10,000 right solutions. Why did you stop at the first right one?" And I was like, well, number one, he was right. I was going to say, how did you know we stopped at the first right one? He's like, but he was right because we had just stopped because we had a right solution. And what he was saying is that our goal is to figure out which of the 10,000 right solutions is the right solution. And so a lot of times we will spend time exploring the terrain. And our goal is to find the right solution because when you find the right solution, everything else gets easy. And a lot of times, counterintuitively, the right time to rebuild something is right after you've built it. So we might build something, it works, it satisfies the requirements, it would allow merchants to have less toil, but it's actually not the right solution. It's not built the right way. It's not built, it doesn't have the right architectural underpinnings. And we will sometimes look at it and go, and actually this happened. I remember we were on a project for 18 months with 20 engineers, and we were in the final review, and Toby goes, if you guys could start over, how would you build it? And they said, oh, we wouldn't do any of this. We would spend 2 or 3 months and we would build it this way. And it's actually much simpler. And he goes, do that. Like just delete the code, take the team and the learnings and just build the thing. And we did in 2 or 3 months. We built the whole thing from scratch and it's much simpler, much more performant. It's the right thing. And so that's very counterintuitive to how I see a lot of companies running these days.
I love that analogy because I just find people get so stuck in we started here, but we really should be over there. And it's like, just go there. Just go do the thing,
Yeah.
right?
Delete the code. It sounds funny, but like delete the code. I mean, usually people don't delete it, but like, sure, like start a new repo, start over. You're allowed to learn from your past self, but you're not allowed to copy and paste. And so
Yeah.
as long as we say that, they tend to build the right thing the next time.
Last couple things here. One, maybe opine on we've been long time friends, so I think maybe dive into some personal life stuff here. I'll give an example for myself. Kids has been the best blessing in my life, and I think they're amazing. It's changed my life way for the better. Like What are some things out there that others should think about, or things that have been influential in your life, in kind of your thinking and acting?
Yeah, so I mean, I like to I also have 3 kids, and I like to watch them learn different things, and I spend time with each of them differently because they're all into different, nerd out topics that, I like to get into each of them because they're all into their own thing. I would say the interesting thing that I tell people too is that, like, work is unlimited, and so you can really just live at work and on your breaks be in work mode and whatever, and I try to get people to think about, like, what is it that you care about? Like, I took a month off in the summer, and people are like, "What are you gonna do?" And, at Shopify, we have this thing where after 5 years, you can take a month off, and I was like, "I'm gonna swim and play chess." And, had nothing to do with work, but it was, like, so freeing to basically be like, "I'm gonna spend my time on these things," and I think everybody should figure out what it is that they also care about outside of work. And I know that there's lots of talk like work life balance and work life harmony and whatever. And I think people should work as much as they want, but they should also figure out what it is that energizes them outside of that, whether that's for me, like, reading science fiction or playing chess. Like, I spent a bunch of time vibe coding on that break and building a tool that I thought would be useful for myself. And it was just eye opening to kind of get to nerd out about on different things. Right. And so I think that's something that I think people should really try to embrace in their lives, which is like, what else are you interested
Let's talk about some new hobbies of yours. Watches.
in? Well, it's not
So
really a new hobby. It's because, for those who don't know, like Amar's wearing a watch that me and a couple of friends got him for his birthday, and Amar and another friend bought me a watch for my birthday, and so now we're getting. Now, I mean, I'm not wearing the one I should have. I should have wore the watch that you gave me, but I'm now getting into the fine craftsmanship of watches, which, by the way, is interesting in its own right because if people like us don't buy these watches, like the craftsmanship of making watches can go away, right? And so it is worthwhile you know, um, to spend time and to pay for art, which is basically what these things are.
love it. Uh, have a watch on your hit list for all those watching. What is it?
I don't even know what it's called, but the platinum Rolex, is it a Daytona? I don't even know what it's called.
So I believe it is colloquially the Daytona, or mechanically the Daytona, and it's a an Arctic blue face that comes
Yes,
only
that's the
in
one.
one metal. So there you go.
Somebody sent it to me. It's like, hey, can you get me this watch? I'm like, whoa, I want this watch.
Well, look, this has been fun. Always love connecting, and I think you just have so much to offer and share people in terms of insights, broadly speaking. They don't always get a chance to meet you one on one, so I think this is great, and appreciate you spending the time with us.
Cool. Thanks for having me. And it's great that you're doing this because it's amazing to highlight all the amazing things that are happening in our ecosystem. Congrats again. And here's, I guess, to 31 more years of hanging out. See you later.
Cheers.